How could this potentially play out legally? Joining us now, Misty Marris, legal analyst. I mean, this is a whopper of a case. There's claims of fraud. There's the notary saying that's not my signature on these documents. Where do we begin today? What argument and defense does the Presley family have?
Yeah, this is actually the 60-page counter lawsuit to try and stop this foreclosure is filled with allegations of absolute and utter fraud. So, Marni, let's take it a step back. The forged signature, that's just part one. The notary did not even know Lisa Marie Presley, did not know who she was. But the biggest piece here, Riley Keough and the estate say there was actually no loan. If there was no loan, then there would certainly be no basis for the foreclosure. So their arguments, no loan, no foreclosure. Their second argument is that this business is actually not a real business entity. It was actually formed for the purpose of defrauding Lisa Marie Presley. So the signatures, that's just part one. But according to this counter lawsuit, it goes even deeper. And Marni, where I would start, if there was no loan, no money was ever transferred or exchanged, that's going to be a strong fact in support of Elvis's estate.
How easy, Misty, is that to prove? I mean, is this just as simple as a paper trail and that one doesn't exist?
Yeah, Marni, follow the money. Absolutely. To the extent that there's documentary evidence on the other side, because we're talking about the countersuit, we're talking about all of the allegations that were raised by Riley Keough and Elvis's estate. They say that there was no loan. Well, we don't know what the other side has. Is there some sort of promissory note that was filed in furtherance of actually moving forward, collecting the debt and the foreclosure? Now, to the extent that there's a document that says money was transferred, well, where is the money? So to your point, this is really, really strongly based on documentary evidence and following that paper trail for the court to make a determination about whether this is a foreclosure that has to go forward because a debt was not collected or an absolute and utter fraud.
How does it complicate the case, Misty, since Lisa Marie is dead? She's not here to defend herself or her family or what she may or may not have signed or said.
It makes it a lot more challenging when it comes down to the personal knowledge of the one that actually allegedly signed any promissory note or went out there and got a loan. So first of all, with respect to her signature, that's where it becomes a little more dicey. In order to prove that it's not her signature, of course, they have this notary. That's step one. But the next step would be maybe a handwriting expert or somebody on that front, because you don't have Lisa Marie Presley to directly contest actually going out there or her experience with this company, which is alleged to have just been formed specifically to defraud her. So it is a challenge, but realistically, when it comes down to this type of issue where you have a contract, right? That's what a loan document is. It's a contract. To the extent that there are documents that support Riley Keough and Elvis's estate's position, and again, I go back to, was money ever transferred? Unless there's some sort of hidden account somewhere, that should be relatively easy to hash out in the courtroom.
If this company did do this fraudulently, it's all fake, what is the likely next step for them and a legal penalty?
Well, this is not only something that could be hashed out in a civil court, because obviously the estate and Riley Keough, they've incurred tremendous amount of attorney's fees, I'm sure, to fight this. And also, there's, to a certain extent, they may have other remedies specifically against that other company on the civil front. But if this turns out to be true, and this was a company that never collected a loan, that never dispersed a loan, and is now trying to collect, they're saying if you don't pay X amount by X date, then there's going to be a foreclosure. They're actually moving forward with that foreclosure action. And that was done willfully and intentionally to defraud. Well, then that becomes a criminal matter, and it would be referred to a district attorney's office for further investigation and possibly criminal charges.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a mess. Let's say Riley loses, the Elvis estate loses in this one. Do they have other legal pathways?
They would have, right now, what this is, it's called an injunction. So what they're doing is trying to put a pause on any foreclosure action while the court makes a determination about whether or not this underlying issue, whether or not there was a fraud. That's usually not decided immediately. So the court takes time to go through that. But in the meantime, the standard is what's called irreparable harm, which obviously selling the estate before making the determination about whether or not that sale is valid would be irreparable harm and likelihood of success on the merits. So I would expect this to be put on pause while the court makes that determination. If they were to lose, of course, they could go through an appellate procedure and they would seek to pause that sale while they appeal any determination by the court that is adverse. So there are other legal remedies, but right now they're in the exact right spot to stop this foreclosure immediately while the court goes through all of this underlying documentation to ultimately make a determination about whether or not this is just, and Marni, by the way, if this is a fraud, this is like beyond reproach to think that no money was ever actually transmitted and that this company is fake for the purpose to defraud and actually trying to sell the property.
I mean, you got to
go so far as to foreclose.
Yeah, you got to think.
It would be mind blowing.
How dumb are you, right? Like to try and do that with an estate like this. We'll see 9 o'clock Central Time, so less than an hour from now, this thing's heading into the courtroom. Misty, thank you. It's a whopper of a case.
Thank you, Marni.